Cup, goals will be going in.
Goals galore. We all love goals. We go to cover events as journalists, and the thing that will get you the sack if you don't capture it is a goal. The sports editor won't want to see you if you go back empty-handed, and yet there was 1 or 2 goals, or bags of goals for that matter, in the match that you went out to cover. For me, the 2014 World Cup, the Robin van Persie goal was my goal. Of course, Tim Cahill scored a beautiful goal, and you just said it, the Colombian James Rodriguez chested it, turned, boom, goal. But my all-time goal, and we've just seen them right there, is that Diego Armando Maradona solo run against the English, like 60 yards. Closed his eyes, opened them, slalomed, twisted and turned like a little eel, and then leaving people for dead in his wake, the entire English midfield, and then got into the defense and found Peter Shilton at goal, slalomed him as well, and then just hit it with his left foot, standing up and running to the crowd. That was beautiful. That captured the spirit of the World Cup. And even politically, you remember there was a lot of political tension between England and Argentina at the time. Maradona sort of sent out a statement that the Falkland Islands are ours. You know, there was contention between England and Argentina, who owns those islands, and the English were saying those are our islands, and the Argentines were saying no, these are our islands.
So for them it was more than football.
It was a political statement. He was standing up to the English and saying no, those islands are ours. What a moment. The Azteca Stadium just stood still.
You talk about standing still, and yes, goals will be scored even in the 2018 World Cup. We just wait and see who will be racking those goals in. At the same time, if we talk about those goals, we just take a look about the people who've been able to score a host of goals in this World Cup. Goals have been going on and in that net, but who tops that list of the most goals scored in the World Cup? If you think about that, it is none other than Miroslav Klose. He's been able to score 16 goals in the World Cup, and for him, he made a huge statement, and World Cup will miss him.
I remember analyzing him on the state broadcaster in the 2002 World Cup. That's when he made his debut. He came on stage and he scored 5 goals, with his head. 5 goals with his head. And people started saying, eventually, this guy should be given the golden helmet. Because what happens when you score the most goals in a tournament, of course, Ronaldo, the Brazilian, scored 8 goals in that tournament. But when you score, and he took the Golden Boot award, I think, Ronaldo, the Brazilian. But this guy scored 5 goals with his head, and guys started saying he should be given the golden helmet, not the golden boot. Because, I mean, how do you score 5 goals with your head? Brilliant German. This guy is absolutely fantastic. Legend. His name is going to be there for years and years to come.
You talk about the name being there for years and years to come. Yes. Another person who is the second on that list is Ronaldo. And for Ronaldo, a lot of people will remember him from the 2002 World Cup, to be specific.
Yes, and my little ones, not Cristiano Ronaldo. There was another Ronaldo, a legend. This one, this man, this real name, Luis Nazario de Lima. This guy, we just called him Ronaldo, and that was it. We couldn't be bothered to call him all those other Luis.
Original Ronaldo.
The original
Remember the haircut?
Ronaldo. This
something
guy,
that also stood out.
Unfortunately, he sort of like fainted or collapsed just before the kickoff of the France '98 World Cup. So he was ruled out for that. He was not on the team list. And then he was all of a sudden on the team list again. He had recovered and he said he's good to play. So Brazil looked like the favorites against France. Then they came on and they lost 3-0. Zidane scored 2 goals in that final. And then he came back in 2002, this guy. And I tell you, he stole the show. Yes, that haircut. They call it the half moon. He just had this part of hair left and then the rest was all out. He scored 2 beautiful goals against the Germans in the final. And Brazil beat Germany 2-0.
Let's talk about another player altogether. That is Greg Muller, who is the 3rd on that list. For him, he was able to score 10 goals. Not Thomas Muller. We're talking about Greg Muller. For Greg Muller, he has scored 14 goals. We will go to Thomas Muller, but before Thomas Muller, we have Greg Muller. Greg Muller was also very, very instrumental because he is 4th on that list. And for Greg Muller, I expect this to be changed, has scored 14 goals. What about that? An epic of a player also?
Well, definitely. And you see, the thing about them is that, unfortunately, they get lost along the way. Just like we were saying of the other Ronaldo, not many people remember him. And this kind of thing is pathetic, it's sad. But the good thing about it is that 4 years down the line comes the World Cup, and we start reminding generation after generation that, well, before Messi came into existence, there was such and such a fella. And this fella did A, B, C, D on the world's greatest footballing stage. So this, Moses, is a time to remind the people that football has been there. And as I said, there's a new generation that is expected to come on board this particular World Cup. They will come on board and they'll try and outshine these particular guys that we are looking at. This is the standard.
Yeah, we're talking about the standard. So for Greg Muller scored 14 goals. So Greg Muller was on that list. And also for Greg Muller, he made very, very huge statements during the World Cup because he was able to score 14 goals. You talk about another instrumental, beautiful player. For Just Fontaine, he scored 13 goals, and for him, I think he's the most prolific World Cup goal scorer because he scored the 13 goals in a single tournament, 1958 World Cup. Only once, 13, the first and only time that he played in the World Cup, and made very, very huge statement. If he had played more, maybe he would have been topping that list.
Goodness. Moses, I couldn't have put it well. Better than you. Let me be honest, I'm nodding my head vigorously in agreement with every single word you said in that statement because it's unbelievable. It's astonishing. I think that record will live for years and years to come, probably 100 years. It will break the 100-year mark. Here is a guy who the limelight has been stolen away from him. The 1958 World Cup, all that credit goes to Pelé. 17 years old, coming onto the stage, winning the World Cup so confidently for Brazil, the first time ever they ever did so. But there was another twist, there was another tale, there was another side to the coin. This gentleman was that side to the coin. 13 goals in one tournament. He could not stop scoring. He just kept banging them in. And history tends to forget him, just as I said a few moments ago. But because of such tournaments, we are reminded that there existed a guy like Just Fontaine who came onto the stage. And in spite of the fact that he's been forgotten, his record will always remind us that Just Fontaine came so and conquered.
Player. We talk about the other player, actually, who's top 5 on that list is Pelé. For Pelé, is able to score 12 goals. A man, a legend, a footballing powerhouse. The name itself defines what football is at this time. Talk about beautiful football. You talk about the original football, you'll think about Pelé.
Edson Arantes do Nascimento. Yes, I got it. Better known as Pelé. Everywhere in the world, just go and say Pelé and people smile. He played football with a smile. He danced, he waltzed, samba, the Brazilian way. He made it look easy, but he did unbelievable things on that pitch. This guy, as I just said, won the World Cup at the age of 17. And then he came back. 1962, Brazil won it again. But of course, that was his teammate, Garrincha's World Cup. Garrincha was like what Maradona was in 1986 for the 1962 World Cup. 1966, Brazil were not that lucky. England were luckier. They won that tournament. But boy, didn't they have to work for their luck against the West Germans. And then 1970, Pelé came in, won his third and last World Cup. This is the greatest footballer of all time. This man you're looking at here is the greatest, not best, the greatest. Pelé won 3 World Cups. Pelé scored countless amounts of goals, 12 at the World Cup out of those 3 outings. And remember, there was a World Cup in which he was injured and couldn't feature much. And he was intentionally injured. And I think that was the 1966 World Cup in England. So this guy could have scored more goals. He could have topped the list. And we wouldn't be talking of the rest as being the best in this category. But his name is indelible in world football, and it stays there forever.
You talk about the name being there, it will be there forever, and he's also been able to show the world how beautiful he can play football. A lot will be expected in this World Cup because we also have top scorers who are heading to the World Cup, but we're going to be talking about them after this short commercial break. Don't go away, because at the same time, we'll be seeing what dented actually the chance for having a Kenyan go and officiate in that World Cup. We were saying that we don't have the national team, but at least we have something to smile about because of a referee who now will not be heading to that World Cup. That and much more after this short commercial break.
Hands up for your colors, represent your country.